started, and I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Attackers incoming.
All right.
Defend objective A.
Alright. So first thing I'm noticing is that we're a little bit delayed with throwing a dynamite. Usually just the first thing you should always be doing every fight is just tossing out a dynamite because you want as many out as possible. It's very easy ultimate charge and damage. So I just be tossing one in there like the moment they're all turning the corner. Because if we do, that's one big juicy dynamite because they're all grouped up right on top of each other. Okay.
Here it comes! Dynamite user is stopped.
Okay, so watch spam jumping. That's just going to be when we go jump, 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 jump. This is just a bad habit to be in because it can make us easier to headshot as it's very easily trackable. So it's not a big major thing. Definitely not going to be the first thing for you to pay attention to, but it is just a thing.
No, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to exit out of that real quick just because I'm already noticing something. So we're going to talk about crosshair placement real quick. So are you familiar with that term at all?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of your videos, and
Oh,
like you want to be aiming at head level.
Yeah, okay, so you already got this basic concept then, right? So
Yeah.
you already talked about all that, right? So just make sure you're aiming at head level, because if we look at your gameplay, I'm seeing a lot of body level aiming where we're just kind of walking around aiming here, and then that just leads to harder shots to hit. So you already got that concept. We can just go back in over here.
Welcome to Holly, ready for battle. Defend objective A.
Yep, it's like here you can just see how we're aiming on like Orisa, or I guess no we can't anymore. Alright, so let's talk about positioning real quick, as I'm noticing some positional things. So, oh, that as well might be something that you saw me go over in the videos. Is no?
Yeah, just want to stay really on high ground.
Yep, on high ground, but then also using cover. Have you seen me talk about that at all? Yeah. So,
I just recently saw that you made a point that I really stood out to me. Is like, imagine if every single person on the enemy team was an ulting McCree.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, and you want to have natural cover.
Exactly, right? So within our gameplay, right, what we just saw was that like we very consistently kept dropping from high ground, so that we just like would be up there and then we drop, and then we'd be up there and then we drop, right? And then on top of that, we were spending a lot of time out in the open, which means that we're going to be very easily killed, right, and shot at. So we want to make sure that we're using cover more appropriately, and we're also using high grounds. But then on top of that, this is something that I don't talk about often, so you might not have seen this on in a video, but just how to properly use high ground positioning, because the exact same there's a way to use high ground positioning incorrectly, right? Like if we're up here, for example, right, and we're out in the open, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people can see us and 5 people can shoot at us. Can we shoot at 5 people at the same time?
Definitely not.
Definitely not, but 5 people can shoot at us at the same time, right? So
yes.
Yeah, exactly, right? So us being right here is not a good thing, so we might want to back up, add in a crouch, move to the left so that they're out of our line of sight, right? All of these things, because like, for example, on the first high ground that we were on, instead of just backing up and crouching to negate damage, we were just kind of like hopping around up over here, right? And then that meant that everybody can see us and shoot at us, and then that forced us to drop early when we could have just probably stayed up there for a little bit. So just so far, positional things, mechanical things, and just not getting our ability off.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Alright.
Oh, I found a game.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let me hop over to your stream then.
Now arriving at Lijiang Tower.
How did I know it was going to be this map?
Prepare for battle. Select your
Another thing that I definitely see that I feel a issue with is like team comps of like maps. So I feel like I'd like to play Ashe or McCree here, but I'm seeing what my tanks are going to play with.
So what was the issue that you had? Like what team comps your team should be running on each map, or what characters you should be running, or?
A little bit of both. Like what's a good team comp? Like I know dive and I know stuff like that, like rush. But like what's good to counter with? I feel like
So you'd like to, yeah, so I mean, that's something we can go over, like how all the different team comps work and interact with each other, something we can go over
Yeah.
after the game's done, because we don't, not gonna have
Pretty
enough time
obviously,
to,
yeah.
to do that right now. But yeah. We'll just take a look and see what we're working with here.
3, 2, 1. Round 1. Capture the objective.
Okay, already just make sure you're aiming up a little bit higher. We're walking around and looking down. Okay.
The objective is now.
Alright, already have a couple of things we'll talk about after the
Is
game is
this?
done.
Do you think TP is high priority to kill or break?
Typically something you'd want to take out at like at the beginning of a fight, right?
Yeah,
if
I just realized
possible.
there's a horrible time because I just got shot at and slept. Yeah, 100%.
Heroes never die.
Alright, be careful about just high nooning straight in front of anybody without any like means of staying alive through it, because that can just lead to an insta death in that situation. So we can, like I said, we have a ton of things that we can talk about after this game is over. But just make sure we're not just pressing Q straight in front of everybody for the moment being.
How'd you not die? What? Oh my god! I hit the stupid chair that's in front of me.
No, I hit the Symmetra.
Oh, the table.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
the
I hit the
Symmetra
Symmetra?
wall. Yeah.
Oh, there was a wall in front of me.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Let's start over at the beginning.
Alright, make sure we're putting some more effort into flashbangs and how we're landing those, as you know,
Yeah.
we end up missing a couple when we're like right in front of somebody. Like I said, at the moment I see like 4 or 5 things we'll just go over after the game is done. I guess one brief thing I could mention is like at the very beginning, probably coming out on the right side isn't a good idea because it's so far away from them, and typically we want to be closer on McCree, which we'll discuss after the game is done more in depth on that. But in general, don't play across the map from people, which we were kind of doing for a lot of the first fight in particular.
Yeah. Okay, sure, for sure.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Round 2. Capture the objective.
I did not mean to do that. Something you probably will notice is I'm just still getting used to PC because I meant to reload there and not flash. That's what I meant to do.
All patched up.
Stay on target.
Oh there. Guess what the doctor ordered. Oh, excuse me.
Very nice.
I've got you.
Feel like a man possessed.
Is up here a good place for me to be?
I'd probably say that might be a little far away, so like more so top right might be better to be. It depends upon the
Here?
situation, yeah. It depends upon the situation and where people are. If they're on point, then top left is fine. If they're not, then top right's probably better.
Uh,
In that last situation, we had pushed up a little bit far, so be careful about pushing
Oh,
up too
shit.
far.
that's not fun. Okay.
So make sure we're not pushing up too far, and then we also went for a long rotation in the middle of the fight, right? Make sure, in a lot of cases, we're not going to want to go for a super long rotation while the fight's going on, because then we're just not participating in the fight.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, in that situation, if you're trying to close the distance, you might want to consider
Oh.
rolling to catch up to her.
Yeah.
Right, so, you know, if we're trying to get up close to Mei because she's out of range, just rolling up is just a really easy way to do that. And then also it's
Yeah.
just knowing the range and that's on our flashbang, which is 10 meters is going to be the range in which you can land flashbang.
I don't want to be holding on for my ult too long here. I want to get in and use it.
Okay, there we didn't notice the Mei that was like right next to us, so just keep your
Oh,
eyes
there
open.
was? Okay, yeah. So, shit, I don't know. Oh, I double clicked it. That's something I do a lot too.
Yep, just keep your eye on that, just make sure you're paying attention.
Oh, I don't want to get hit by that. He's nanoed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got a little bit over aggressive there, a little out in the open, right? Just make sure we're paying attention to our positioning as we got like kind of started running onto the other side of the map, and then we also like stepped off high grounds and we
Mhm.
stepped out into the open, right, on the middle of a point. So real quick, let's gonna go over a bunch of things. Don't hop into a queue yet, just in case you get into
That
a
was a
game
good idea,
fast.
yeah.
I'm streaming once again if you'd like to take a look, and let's talk about a couple things. So,
Yeah.
I guess first off, let's talk. Trying to think. All right, let's talk on some things, and just let me know if this is any of the things that you've seen
Are you
in
talking?
my
Because I
videos.
can't hear you.
Oh yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Hello,
All in a
I-
day's work.
hello,
I
hello,
can't hear anything.
hello. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
What happened to my? Oh, I think
Hello,
something.
can you hear me?
I can't hear anything. I have no volume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm good.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so just let me know if anything I'm saying is something that you've
Rest
already
in
heard me
peace.
say before, because I have no clue what you have and haven't heard me say if you're
Yeah.
watching my videos. So let's just have you heard me talk about ranges on McCree at all?
Not really.
No? Okay, so let's talk about that. So, on McCree, you have ranges that you prefer to stay within, and McCree is a close to mid-ranged character. So what that means is you don't want to be right here on somebody, because there's a lot of characters that do this better than McCree, right? So think Reaper does this better than McCree, Junkrat, Mei does this better than McCree, Reinhardt does this better than McCree. And there's a lot of characters that like this range better than McCree, and therefore you're not typically going to want to be like right up inside of people's faces, except for there's certain characters that you can do this against, right? So for example, if you were to roll up to a Mei with a flashbang, right, you can do that, right? So the basic first step is you start out usually roughly around 10 meters away. This also, like I said, puts you in range of flashbang that we can land, right? That's the max range of
Never had a
flashbang, but we also don't
chance.
want to step too far, as when you step too far, you start getting fall off damage and then also inaccuracies. So fall off damage damage looks like this, where you go 1, 2, 3, right? We step just a couple inches
And then
this
it doesn't
way.
do as much damage.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And fall off damage is like pretty extreme now, especially after they nerfed it to where now all the way back here we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And we have to re-roll and we do take 10 shots to kill somebody,
You gotta
right?
work on
Into a
that
body shot.
aim.
So first off, we have fall off damage. Secondly, targets are also a lot harder to hit at ranges, right? When they're really far away, it's a smaller target, and therefore that's a lot harder to hit than this is, right? When they're right next to me. So therefore, typically your range is going to be around 10 meters to typically probably say, probably cap it out at your preference being 25 meters, right? And that's where the range in which you prefer, and then you can be a little bit further than that, and you can go closer based upon the situation, right?
Bang.
So that's the first thing to talk about. Second thing, probably thinking. I noticed that we didn't typically use roll a ton, so I'm looking to just use roll more often. Roll's a lot of different uses. You can use it for mobility to get places fast. You can use it to reload. Right, you shoot, reload instantly. You can use it to dodge damage, and then but on top of the mobility aspect, are you familiar with how to do McCree's
No
new roll tech
stopping
that
me.
just kind of people found out?
Not really. I'm talking about like when you roll jump.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so essentially it's just you are going to roll and then jump pretty much immediately after you roll press your roll button, right? It's really fast pacing, which you have to press them. You can't just press one then the other.
Yeah. I saw you do it on Volskaya when you were
Yeah.
speaking to someone, and I was like, wait, how do you do that? I went to a practice, and I can do that. It's not that hard. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I didn't know that was a thing.
All right, well,
You
so
jumped a lot
then you got
farther.
that one, right? So
Yeah.
just keep practicing at that, and then moving on. Have you heard me talk on flashbang usage and when, or I guess sorry, more so left click versus right click usage would be more
No,
accurate?
I haven't
No?
heard that.
All right, so let's talk about that. So when to use left click versus right click, particularly into a flashbang, is the main time, right? Typically, left click is best if you're able to left click, right? Because what that means is that we can two tap somebody, right, and then
Rest in
out of a
peace.
flashbang, and then still have 4 shots to just keep shooting and keep doing things with, right? Immediately, there's no delay. Whereas a right click, if we were to right click, we have this long delay where we have to reload, and then we can start shooting again, right? This also, on top of that, will mean that if we don't have shots to spare, we are going to still be able to finish the person, right? If I have 2 or 3 shots left here, right? If I were to right click, I wouldn't be able to finish this target, whereas if I were to left click, I would, right?
I'm
So
on a
left click
roll.
is what you want to do if you can. If you cannot, you right click. So what that looks like is, for example, take a Tracer, right? Tracer you can headshot all the way around, right? But a
That'll learn
Reinhardt,
ya.
right? You can only headshot from the front. You can't from the side. You can't from the back, right? So therefore, we would probably right click from the back or the side on a Reinhardt, but from the front we would left click, right? Because we can melt them from the front with left click, but
Smart,
we
don't
can't hit the headshots from all around, right? So when you can't see heads is one time that you right click, right? You can also right click when you're like right in on top of somebody, because left clicking, like flicking up to the head, can be pretty hard, right? If you're like right on top of somebody. You can also right click if you're not prepared for a flashbang, right? So let's say someone sneaks up behind us, we have to flick around and flashbang and right click real quick, right? If you're not prepared for it, then you can't really have the headshot lined up super easily. Whereas if we're premeditating it, we can line up the headshot very easily, right? If we know we're going in for the flashbang here, right, we can already line up our crosshair
Hold
head
up
level,
now.
and then those shots just
You
become very
need
easy,
to
right?
do
So those are just the different times that we should use both, and then we saw a couple times where we just kind of right click when it wasn't necessary, right? But that's kind of tiny-ish, right? Moving on, let's talk about high noon usage, right? So how do you get off an effective high noon? Right? Have you heard me talk about this one?
Not really. I don't
Not
think
really.
so.
All right, so let's talk about it.
Happy
So
trail.
how to get off an effective high noon, right? The first one I saw us use, we essentially what it looked like was enemy team is right here, our team is right here. We just went boop, right, and that's how we high nooned. This is gonna get you killed, especially in higher ranks, right, where they just look at you and they shoot at you and you die instantly. So when we
Play with
high,
CNC.
go ahead.
I said especially with like CNC.
Yeah, exactly. So just make sure we're doing other things to keep ourselves from dying. So the
Very
three
much
main
like
ways that
you.
we can do this, right? We can, number one, use protection from our team. So, for example, using shields and using your team to body block for you, or tanking abilities, right? This is usually going to be a very low risk because you have a very low chance of dying when doing this, but also low reward high noon, where you're
All
probably
that
also
very
you're gonna be
fine.
staring at shields and tanks and probably not gonna get a ton done with it, right? On from there, right? Another one is you can high noon from really far away where people can't really contest you. So if they're not running anything that can shoot you from far away, we can just do a high noon from all the way over here where, they can't really contest me, and then therefore they can't really do anything against me. That one's a little all over the place. It depends upon the situation, how dangerous it is, and how many people are looking at you type of deal, right? So it can get you a lot of value. It could just get you a tiny bit of value. And then the final one way to do this is to go for off angles and flanks. Are you familiar with what off angles and flanks are?
Yes.
Yes?
Bullseye.
Alright. So,
Yeah.
when you go for off angles and flanks, this gets us around shields and around tanks, which means that we're going to be acquiring targets much, much faster. This means that we can just get a surprise advantage, so they don't know where the heck we're coming from. And usually this is going to be a very high reward, maybe like a medium risk-ish high noon. So
Never
usually
had
those
a
are those are the
chance.
high noons that you want to try to go for, are the ones where you go for that, right? For off angles and or flanks, right? So probably go for those high noons, but just in general, make sure not jumping into their team with high noon. Right. Moving on, you wanted to talk about team comps, so why don't we talk about
Okay.
that? Right. I am going to send you something real quick over on Discord.
Okay. Oh, that's not
Yeah.
Discord. That's Overwatch.
Yeah. So this is a rough team compositions chart and how they interact with each other. So, are you familiar with dive, brawl, and spam, and like what characters make them up?
I know dive, which could be like double bubble, or you can do like Zarya Winston. Not Zarya, excuse me. Zarya, that is double bubble. Then you can have Diva Winston. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know how ball works into dive because
Mm-hmm.
personally I don't like ball because a lot of times they're just not accomplishing much unless I'm playing Zarya because ball is just
Mm-hmm.
basically just free bubble charge for me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
yeah, I
So then,
don't really know what brawl is, not
mm-hmm.
really, or hybrid.
Okay. So and then spam. You familiar with that one or not?
I mean, I can assume it would like be like Soldier or Junkrat, just like spamming at shields or like shield break with Hanzo.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then, right? So dive, you got that one, right? You know what that is. Brawl.
Yeah.
What brawl is brawl is very close ranged characters. So that is going to be like Reinhardt, Zarya, Reaper, Mei, Lucio, Moira. Right? Those are all brawly characters, and they like close quarters and fast pacing. So
Mm-hmm.
spam compositions are going to be your long ranged characters that make this up, right? That is going to be characters such as Orisa, Roadhog, Sigma, right? You have snipers and, like you said, Junkrat Soldier. You also have like Zen, Mercy, Baptiste, right? Those are spam characters, and they just like to go pew pew from a range. Now, hybrid is anytime you have a mix of just anything. You're not really running any particular composition. You're just kind of in the middle, right? So how that works is if you have 4 or more characters of a specific composition, you are that comp. But if you have less than that, then you're kind of all over the place. So, for example, if you have if you have 4 dive characters, then you're a dive comp. But if you have 3 dive characters and 2 spam characters and a brawl character, well, then you're just a divey hybrid, right? You're just kind of all over the place, and hybrids just kind of don't really have a particular play style a lot of the time. Right? So let's talk about how do these comps play into each other. So dive is very standard. It just kind of has a very easy to understand play style of you start off far away and then you dive in close. That's your distancing, right? But then the pacing is also very standard because every comp works like this, and you start off very, very slow, and then as the fight progresses, as you get more picks, as you get advantages and ultimates, then you get more and more aggressive, right? Now,
Yeah.
how a brawl works, right? How a brawl works is, or I guess let's start with spam. Spam is better, right? How spam works is also I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop watching because I was hearing the audio there. So How spam
Sorry.
works. Yeah, all good. Yeah. How spam works is because they are very long range characters, they prefer a very slow pacing, right? If
Mhm.
you can just spam them the entire way they're walking in, you can do a bunch of damage and they can't damage you at all, right? So think, for example, we're on Junkrat and we're just going pew, 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 right? The longer we can go pew, 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 the more damage we're doing and the more advantages we get, right? So they like far distances, slow pacing, whereas Brawl is the exact opposite. Brawl is a composition that is a close range, and then therefore they like fast pacing. Reaper cannot, if you're doing a Reaper versus a Widowmaker, Reaper, if he's like a mile away from Widowmaker, is not gonna be able to do anything. Whereas Widowmaker can just shoot him for free. So how Reaper wins there is he plays really, really fast and he gets up close to her and then he wins, right? So that's the difference between those two compositions. Does this all make sense?
Yes.
Yep. So then, I guess, did you have any other questions in terms of how team compositions work into each other, or just in any other
No,
questions
not
on team
really.
comp? Yeah.
No,
All
that
good.
definitely makes sense.
Mhm.
I'm gonna keep
So
that.
then let's see here. Was there anything else I want to talk about? Do do do. I think that might be it for now. You can probably look to just go ahead and hop into your next game.
I
Or if you did you want to go over a replay for the second half, or do you want to go into another comp game here?
What do you think would be better for me?
Honestly, it just depends upon the person. Typically, like the people who are more hands-on prefer, in like kind of live the coaching, whereas I probably say the replay comes with a couple other benefits, such as like we want to have queue times, we are able to pause it and go over things more in depth. So it depends on how you feel like you learn, right? I don't really know how you learn yet because this is the first time we've met.
I feel like we could probably go over that Ash game again, like, and then maybe if we have time, we can go into another game because I
Okay.
feel like that Ash game was very, like, I felt like I did good, but I feel like I've seen that, I've
Yeah.
noticed that I've made a lot of mistakes, like spam jumping and not aiming for the head.
Mm. Yeah, so yeah, we probably if we go over this, we probably won't have time to go over another one as we only have like 30
That's
minutes
all
left here.
good. That's all good.
But let's hop into that then. So I am still streaming. Yeah, yeah, okay. Wait, am I? Yeah, I am. Okay, you can stop streaming as well if you're not gonna be doing your thing anymore.
I,
All right.
Ready for battle. Double kill.
Okay, so this is like where we just kind of drop from high ground, not necessarily notice positioning, just very out in the open, no cover at all, right? And that can just lead to easy deaths. Okay, crosshair placement, just notice how that is on a wrist. So just pointing out all these things again, right? Just means that we're going to be hitting versus body instead of our head, which does 2 times the damage. Very nice dynamite.
Double kill. Wanting
So here, if I have the time to, I'd probably be using this time to rotate up to a high ground. Just in between fights, it's always a good idea to take the best positioning possible because you'd have before the next fight starts, you usually have like 20-ish seconds to work with. So we want to be regrouping and getting up to good positioning instead of just kind of walking forwards here. So maybe like taking top right might be a good idea. Okay, very nice shots.
Here it comes.
Okay, let's talk about flick aiming real quick because I've noticed that we go for some flicky shots here and there. Have you heard me talk about that at all?
uh, flicking is better for. I heard talk about it. Like
Yeah.
flicking is like one better for like close range, I think, or whatever
Yeah,
you said.
no. So flicking has 3 different uses, right? Not 3 main uses, right? And then there's other situations where it comes into play. But some
Mhm.
examples, right? Are flicking is useful when somebody's a really fast moving target, right? So let's say Tracer's blinking around you. Well,
Right, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
yeah, so then to since I'll just give you the reminder since you get what I'm saying, right? So someone's flanking around behind you, fast moving target, when somebody sneaks up behind you, when you're not aiming at somebody and someone just appears on our screen, so we have to flick over to them. But if we're already aiming straight at somebody, flicking does nothing but just make us less consistent and just messes with our aim. So when we're already staring at them, there's no reason to flick, but if we're not looking at them, then we can flick to them. Nice shots. Oh, watching the wall. Probably here could be coach gunning up to high grounds.
I did that right there. Sometimes I'll do that. That's what I was trying to do, but sometimes I don't flick hard enough down. I was trying to flick coach on the high ground right there, but I ended up going back.
Yep. So just taking some more time to do the flicking down. All right. So, first off, Bob's coming a little bit late because as of the time that we're bobbing, we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other ultimates being used, right? And that means that in that time, we could end up, already be losing the fight. So, typically, ults that are used first get more value than ults that are used second. So think, for example, Soldier's Visor gets 2 kills on your supports. Now you're down 2 people, and if we bob now, well, now we're already losing the fight. There's no one to heal Bob up. We miss out on maybe being able to nano Bob or something like that, right? It essentially just means Visor gets value, Bob doesn't, right? And then on top of that, we could end up just losing the fight before we get a chance to Bob. So I would imagine here we do get a pick. Reinhardt does get a pick back, but I would imagine that just because we've used it after they've already used 3 other ultimates, that it's probably going to get less value. Now it could get value, but I would imagine it's not going to get as much value. The second thing I would mention with Bob is it's not great Bob placement, right? So let's look at this Bob placement, right, and how we have this, right? So from here, right, Bob is able to shoot all of point, but for the most part, I'd probably say that they're able to kind of put out a line of sight easily, right? Like Moore is able to just get out of line of sight. Reinhardt and Genji are able to get out of line of sight. Mercy is flying through the open right now, but she's going to be able out of line of sight soon enough. Orisa is going to be able to just walk around the corner and get out of line of sight, right? So in general, what you want to do with Bob is you want to get an off angle with Bob, right? So
Gotcha.
that does what you call like crossfire effect, where if we, for example, were like if we rewound this and went up to here, right? Back when we were on this high ground and they're walking through choke, right? So if we were knowing that the fight is beginning, right? If we were to throw Bob and put Bob like right here, right? Well, now Bob is shooting at them from behind, and they can't shoot Bob they can't shield Bob against Bob, right? Because if they shield against Bob, then our team gets to shoot at them, and they can't all turn to shoot at Bob because if they do, then our team melts them from behind. So now they're in this conundrum of, do we look at Bob or do we look at the team, right? They have to make that decision, and that's what you call the crossfire effect, where inherently, right, unless they had perfect communication, which no one does, they are always going to be splitting their resources and not dedicating like the right resources to each target, right? So whereas if we were to put Bob over here, right, just like let's say we just put Bob right here, well, now they can just shield forwards and still be shielding Bob, and shoot forwards and still be shooting Bob, and just get around the corner super easily from Bob, right? All of which just mean that Bob doesn't get as much value. So probably propping Bob up behind them is going to be better than putting it just on the point, right? So for example, here again, maybe better placement than just plopping it into this wall here probably would be maybe something like this, where now look at the sight lines that this gets. This means that Orisa can't be safe. Moira can't be safe. Mercy, until she gets over to her team, can't be safe. This also gives more line of sight to the Reinhardt and the Genji and the Mercy if they go over there, right, than this does, right? So here, this would just end up covering a lot more space, right? And also end up getting you a crossfire effect, right? That makes sense?
I feel like a big reason that I used that Bob there was just for contesting point to see if we could still win that.
Which, not necessary in the slightest when you still have, when they don't even have anything ticked yet, right? They don't have a single
Yeah.
thing tick at all, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people get into the mindset of like, oh no, they're gonna get a tick or whatever. Don't worry about it until they're like 2 seconds away from capping. You'd only ever need to use Bob here to contest point if they're 2 seconds away from capping and nobody else can touch the point, right? Other than that, point percentage doesn't matter at all. It's inconsequential. You'd rather win the fight than lose. Like it's better that you win a fight than worry about losing a tick and then lose the fight.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Fox, do something. Much better.
Okay, good cover usage.
That is embarrassing. We don't have to talk about this. Oh, I whipped so many shots right here.
No, unfortunate. Dynamiting slightly earlier. Don't go for scoped shots typically when somebody's like right on top of you, right? Just because that makes us easier to shoot at. It lowers our movement speed. Us zooming in isn't going to be super great when we're like an inch away from somebody. So if you do go for shots, you're going to go for quick scope shots where you just scope in for half a second and that's it. Not full scoping in and then letting them shoot us for free. Like here we full scope in and then here we full scope in, right? So do quick scopes or do left clicks, right? Don't hard scope. Right, because that's just going to get us killed super easily.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Smoke 'em out of there.
Okay, very nice. Be careful about like standing still when you see people are like staring straight at you, because that can just end up getting you killed or having you take a bunch of damage, right? So that is a very handy tech to landing easy dynamites, but you have to be careful about that. Like if you see people are shooting at you, you might want to not stand still, right?
I got that. Yeah.
I noticed that a lot of the time we just use Coach Gun to just boost ourselves up in the air, which can get you value in situationally, but I'm noticing that we use that like almost every time that we use Coach Gun. It's just shoot straight down and then we get some height for half a second and then the ability's gone, right? Whereas I'd probably say there's a lot more handy ways to use Coach Guns, such as getting, Genji off of you, which we have been doing, right? Or retaking a high ground, which I probably say we haven't been doing too often, as using a Coach Gun to get to a high ground. You can use Coach Gun for mobility to get from point A to point B faster. You can use it to just do some extra damage if you have somebody on top of you, right? Whereas Coach Gun straight up in the air, like here, is it really necessary? Like when we could just peek left side and go pew pew shoot shoot, or peek this side and go pew pew shoot shoot, or whatever. I'd probably say like Coach Gunning up in the air doesn't get you a ton of value, right? In this situation, so I would probably say it's not worth the cooldown.
Smoke 'em out of there.
Yeah, like not worth the cooldown to get like 2 shots off, and then it also just puts us off a high ground.
This will restore you.
Here it comes.
Okay. Have you heard me talk about target priority at all?
No, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask about that.
So you have heard me talk about it, yeah?
Not really, but
No? Okay.
no.
So let's talk about that then. So target priority, kind of what should you be shooting at, should not be shooting at, right? So in general, it gets pretty complicated in some instances, but very simply, you don't want to be shooting at tanks. Tanks have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have tanking abilities. They have shields. They have armor. And then on top of that, even though tanks are a very important role, their job is to create space for the other roles, whereas supports output healing and DPS output damage, which are both statistical outputs, and then therefore they're the characters we want to kill. So it gets more complicated because even within supports and DPS, there are you want to go for easier to kill targets over harder to kill targets, right? So, for example, take a look at their team composition and think to yourself, who's harder to kill, a Genji or a Mercy?
Okay. Mercy. I mean Genji, obviously.
Yeah, so therefore, if you have the option between the two, maybe go for the Mercy instead of the Genji, right? So it gets more. I'd probably say their 4 characters right now are all their 4 squishies are pretty even-ish, but then it gets really different. Like for example, if you were to compare like a Tracer to a Zenyatta, right? Tracer's going to be much harder to kill than a Zenyatta is, right? So put your attention more into Zenyatta, right? So that's not to say that we never shoot at tanks. You shoot at tanks when they're the only thing to shoot at, when they're low, out of position. But when you have equal opportunity, meaning here we can choose to shoot at the soldier, or we can shoot at, I guess we can come over this way and shoot at the Moira and the Genji, right? For free, right? Why are we shooting at Orisa, right? Just thinking of it like that, right? And then that means that we're now not going to be getting nearly as much value.
Experience tranquility.
Okay, good dynamite though. Okay, so now we swap targets. That's good. Oh, almost. Very nice. Good shots. Very good dynamite again. Good job to, you can see how much value this high ground is getting for us here. Though Soldier does end up catching us off guard there, so just make sure paying attention to Soldier as we, just simple awareness says, oh, Soldier was here 2 seconds ago. Soldier no longer here. Soldier no die. Where is Soldier, right? So just that simple walkthrough of thoughts, as well as paying attention to our audio awareness, right? So within audio awareness, a couple things to pay attention to are turn up your regular volume if you feel like it's too low, turn down your music volume or turn it off as this can clutter the sound. Yeah. Turn if you don't have it on turn on surround sound if you don't have it on your headset. And then if you don't have an option on your headset, turn it on in-game, Dolby Atmos for headphones, right? This will give you an option to be able to hear your surroundings better, right? And then on top of that, even if all of those were on the worst settings, if you have this one, you have good audio awareness, and that is make sure you're listening to your surroundings, right? Pay attention to footsteps and gunshots and abilities and ultimates. So here, we shouldn't be waiting until Soldier's already shooting at us for us to hear him, because we can hear him running on the bottom left. We can hear him when the platform is rising up and his footsteps as he's approaching us, right? That way we know that he's there, much sooner, and then therefore aren't dying to him or getting shot by him. Right, and then there again, right, just it's a little bit of awareness of not noticing Moira until she's like on top of us, right? Very nice.
Don't mess with an original.
Probably coach going up the high ground. Oh, yep. Look straight down. Alright. So how are we gonna use our ult here? Oh, we hear the Genji. Very nice. Probably just continue to left click him. Notice again that we're using ults after they're using ults. Though that is pretty good placement. Like possibly just like a little bit behind them would just be like here, for example, would be better. Like notice again, more angles. We can actually see Genji and anybody who's over here, Mercy too, right? We get it behind them, right? Covers a lot of space with this, right? That type of idea with it.
So real quick, what you're saying is basically I only should be really using Bob to contest if it's like about to lose the fight if he doesn't contest. But if not, if we're not gonna lose the fight if he doesn't contest, I shouldn't have him on point.
Yeah, I mean, like here, what if they push the cart an extra, half inch? What difference does that make?
Yeah, I
Right?
got that, yeah,
Like
100%.
it would matter, right? You would need Bob to contest if you were like right here, right? If the cart was like a second away from capping, but then even there, if you have both your tanks on point, why would you put Bob in a worse position to contest if he doesn't need to contest, right? So
True.
only put Bob to contest if contention is needed and if no one else can contest, right? Or no tanks can contest, right?
Gotcha.
Get into position.
A little bit delayed with the reaction, right? Therefore we die, so that is an awareness death. Same as probably I'd say the last death was an awareness death, right? Getting a little bit too aggressive when we were low HP, and then not noticing the Moira, so make sure paying attention to our environment as it's getting us killed. Okay, probably retake high ground with Coach Gun there, just get up there sooner. Right, instead of having to do this long wraparound, probably could have just gotten up to high ground like all the way back here. Just go straight up, boom, we're here, right? We can still shoot at them while we're approaching.
Here it comes.
Very nice.
Double kill. 60 seconds remaining.
All right.
Yeah, I thought the Zen was someone else.
I stick up for my crew.
Yeah, very nice.
Here it comes.
Got you in my sights.
Oh, how'd I miss that?
Just a lot of shots missed. So here, missed a lot of shots. On top of that, we also boost ourselves into some not great positioning. Make sure we're not boosting
Yeah.
ourselves into bad scenarios. So first off, we missed dynamite. Secondly, we missed a ton of shots. Thirdly, we end up boosting ourselves into bad spots, which, you know, alternatively, I don't know, like he's not even looking at us. We could have just shot him normally, right? And then that gets us killed. Make sure we're looking to stay alive because we've been dead a lot here.
Put them out of their misery.
Oh, flicking a little too fast, right? What sensitivity do you have in game and like DPI?
Okay, so I kind of assumed you're gonna have that. It's at default, but my mouse has the button where I can change my DPI. I have it at the second one. I mean, I can check right now what my DPI is because I know I have to go my Logitech software.
Mm-hmm. So what's default in game? What's the default sensitivity?
Okay, hold on, let me check. Sensitivity at 12.
Okay, and then what's your DPI at?
30. Oh yeah, no, actually, that's 12. And then my DPI. How do I check my DPI? Hold on.
Hmm?
I'm going to try to see if I can check my DPI. Ooh.
Yeah, so are you in like your software settings for your mouse?
No, how do I do that?
Yeah, so do you have what mouse do you have?
Logitech.
Logitech, do you have like Logitech like a Logitech software
I
for
don't
your
think
mouse?
so.
You don't? Okay, so I probably recommend getting one of those like installed because you can you'd be able to see you'd be able to change your mouse settings and stuff like that, right? So I definitely recommend seeing that, but I would probably imagine that this is a pretty high sensitivity just because 12 is pretty high in and of itself. So let's say you have an average DPI, which I would probably say an average DPI is what I have, and that's like 800, right? So if you had 800, right, my in-game sensitivity is 4.5, so you would have almost 3 times my sensitivity, but there's also a chance that you have a higher DPI as well. Maybe you have a lower DPI, but from what I've seen, it looks as though you have a pretty high sensitivity in-game. So my recommendation would probably be to go a bit lower, as you know, when you have a super high sensitivity, it gets hard to have pinpoint accuracy. Generally, most of the gaming community agrees that lower sensitivities are going to be better for skill shots. And then, you know, some people don't like if you prefer it. I mean, there's a couple people who like for example, like Pine in the Overwatch League, who does have a high sensitivity and still does it. So it's not impossible to do with a higher sensitivity, but it can just be harder and more difficult. So that'd be something I would recommend. Then also just keep in mind that if you do go for lower sensitivity, that it is required that you would have a large mouse pad. As if you don't have a large mouse pad, then you won't have room to move your mouse around with.
My mouse pad it covers my mouse and my keyboard, so it's probably what 2 feet long.
Yeah, then that works fine. Oh, missing higher
Very
aim
good,
again.
Ken.
Watching that.
So this right here, would that be a good time to bob or on
Nope.
point?
You
Nope.
know,
Okay.
them moving anywhere is inconsequential. Doesn't make a difference, right? You'd rather
Gotcha.
win the fight than stop them from moving an extra like 4 inches, right? Like it's not something that you care about at this point, whether they move or not. Okay, good dynamite. All right. Alright, we're going to exit out here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the main points of the session, do a quick review, and then wrap it up from there. So let's take a look. So ability usage, right? We had pretty good dynamite usage actually. Like a couple things to just be make sure you're not standing still when you know people are staring at you, and making sure we're just dynamiting as often as possible and as early in fights as possible. But besides that, dynamites are actually pretty solid. Right, so there are a couple inconsistencies, but besides that, really good. Coach Gun, on the other hand, not too great, right, because we'd end up missing a vast majority of them, right? So make sure we're just looking straight down. Don't try to, like, every time you do it, don't try to do, like, a really fast flick down, right? Instead, just look down, go up, boom, you're up there, right? Besides that, make sure we're not just Coach Gunning up in the air to get a shot or two in every time you use it, right? There's a lot of uses for Coach Gun. We can use it to get up to high ground, to boop someone away from us, to do some damage, to, it really has a lot of different uses, right? And we don't want to only use it to just boost straight up in the air, because then that's probably say it's sometimes it's good. Probably say the main reason why you'd ever do that is if you're trying to get off a dynamite, or you think you can get a kill out of it. Besides that, probably say, oh yeah, let's go over to McCree as well, right? McCree, just make sure you're using roll a bit more, right? And then besides that, flashbang, right? Left click versus right click. Left click if you can see heads and you're expecting it. Right click if you are not expecting it, it's a surprise and you cannot see heads, right? And then besides that, make sure we're just knowing our range. It's 10 meters on flashbang, and then just using it more often to make sure we're trying to land it, right? And then overall, probably say that abilities went like a low to medium priority, right? Kind of, sorry, low to medium priority for you to work on is what I meant to say there. Kind of important, kind of not, right? Just kind of there is the big thing. All right, moving on, ultimate usage, right? Bob, make sure we're using ultimates at the very beginning of fights, right? That we're not holding on to them. Then, because ults that are used first generally get more value than ults that are used second. Make sure that we are putting Bob behind them. Get an off angle with Bob, right? Make sure Bob can see things, right? And then get a crossfire effect from behind McCree High Noon. Make sure that you're not just doing it out in the open where everybody can see you, right? But do it when you have protection. Do it when you're far away, or do it when you're on a off angle or a flank, right? And then overall, I'd probably say ultimate usage came in like slightly above ability usage at probably like a medium, right? Moving on, mechanics, right? Make sure that we are, lowering sensitivity if you want a little bit smoother, less flicky aim, right? Make sure that we're not going for random flicks when they're not necessary, right? If you're already aiming at somebody, flicks aren't necessary, just stay on the target, right? But when you need to adjust to somebody, right? Like, let's say we just killed this person and we have to flick over to the next person, right? That's fine. Flicking is necessary, fast-moving targets, someone just appeared on our screen, someone's behind us, right? Those are times where it's necessary. Moving on, crosshair placement, make sure we're aiming at head level, right? Keeping our crosshair there and aiming where people are going to be. And then besides that, let's see, target priority, right? Making sure that we're shooting at the right things, right? Don't shoot at tanks. Generally, right? They're not the things you want to shoot at. You shoot at tanks when they're low, out of position, or if they're the only thing you can shoot at. Other than that, shoot at DPS and supports, right? And then that's about it, I think, right? So overall, that one probably goes to like a, trying to think, probably maybe like a medium to medium high. Maybe I'll just place it in a medium high because I think it's above ultimate usage, but I don't know if it's fully that high, right? Moving on to positioning, make sure that we are keeping cover, right? Because good positioning is the usage of cover, bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? Make sure we're taking high grounds and don't drop from high grounds randomly, because we kept dropping from high grounds like all the time, right? Look to use Coach Gun to get up to high ground. Besides that, use high ground correctly by using cover and backing up away from the ledge and crouching. Besides that, let's see, what else is there? think that's about it with positioning. Yeah, those are the main things. Make sure we're not like running into their team. Oh, McCree and Ashe, right? Make sure ranges, right? 10 to 25 meters is preferred range, right? Don't go closer or further. And then besides that, and then yeah, let's see where we place that one at. Probably place that one at a, like a medium
Don't mess with
priority. Trying to think. Maybe I'd put that one at medium high. We'll place that one at a medium high, right? And then finally, actually before we get to the last one here, real quick, I'll add in, I forgot, left click versus right click with your
You have to
Ashe gun,
double
right?
for
Left
precision.
click, right, is when you're close to people and you're finishing off a target. Right click is when you're farther away, right? You can, if you're right on top of somebody and you want to right click, do a quick scope, right? Don't just hard scope in on top of them, right? Those are times the differences between the two, and that goes into mechanics, right? And then finally moving on to the last one, which is awareness, right?
Don't waste
Paying
my
attention to your
time.
surroundings, right? Make sure we're paying attention to what is our health bar at. Don't get aggressive when you're low HP. Request healing, right? Paying attention to where is the enemy team at, right? So we know when soldiers sneaking up behind us, right? Paying attention to our audio awareness, right? So again, we know when soldiers sneaking up behind us, right? Just paying attention to what's going on in the fight, and then that leads to better awareness. We ended up dying a couple times to awareness, and then overall that probably goes to like a medium high as well. So let's put that all in order real quick. Let me take a second to think.
And real
Okay.
quick, what would you say like the number one thing that you think I did wrong, or like I should be really focusing on?
Yeah, which is that's what I'm about to go over here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna put in order, right? So number one thing for you to work on, I'd probably say goes to. Honestly, the top ones are tied very closely. Probably say that it goes to positioning, because that's just a very easy one to fix if you just use cover and take high ground. So it's like pretty simple, I guess, in comparison to the other ones. Then besides that, number two, probably we'll just tie the other two, right? Awareness and mechanics come in number two. Then number three comes in at probably your ultimate usage, and then finally is your ability usage, right?
You have to
So
watch
you got
out
any
for the
questions or
1%.
anything about anything we've talked about, or just anything else in general?
Double kill.
No, I think we've pretty much gone over everything that I need to focus on.
Okay, so let me stop the recording there.